Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Windy City Nitty Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Walter Hefner, and on this episode, I wanted to talk about a television series on TV One called Unsung Hollywood. Now, this is a spinoff from the music documentary series Unsung on TV One. Now, Unsung deals with, various musicians in hip hop, R&B, gospel, rap, and with Unsung Hollywood, this deals with various actors, comedians, television shows and movies. Now, some of the episodes that they've already brought out were episodes about Red Fox, Bernie Mac, Ice-T, Tupac Shakur, as well as they've talked about various movies such as Cooley High and Baby Boy, as well as TV shows such as New York Undercover, The Jeffersons, and A Different World. Now, one of the recent episodes I had a chance to watch was an Unsung Hollywood episode they did about Wayne Brady. So we all know him from the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? As well as currently he's the host of Let's Make a Deal. Now, the thing I liked about the Wayne Brady episode, he goes into details as to how him appearing on an episode of Chappelle's Show came about. So a lot of us that watch Chappelle's Show may remember the Wayne Brady episode. So he goes into details about how that came about. So if you're a fan of Chappelle's Show or Wayne Brady or want to know how that came about, I highly recommend watching that episode. He goes into details about how it all came about. But today, just want to talk about various episodes of Unsung Hollywood that I would like to see. So the first person that I'd like to talk about is Vanessa Williams. Now, Vanessa Williams is known for being the first African-American Miss America, as well as we know her for songs such as Dreaming and Save the Best for Last. We've also seen her in movies such as Soul Food. She starred in the movie Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger, as well as she starred in Shaft with Samuel Jackson, as well as she's appeared in different TV shows such as Desperate Housewives and Ugly Betty. Now, with the Vanessa Williams episode, I could see them doing this as an episode of Unsung, as well as an episode of Unsung Hollywood. The reason I say that, they did the same thing with Ice-T. They did an episode of Unsung regarding Ice-T's rap career. Then they did an episode of Unsung Hollywood regarding his TV and movie career. So I can see them doing this with Vanessa Williams also. Another person I'd like to see an episode of Unsung Hollywood would be the late Michael Clark Duncan. Now, we know him for such movies such as starring in Armageddon with Bruce Willis, The Green Mile with Tom Hanks, The Scorpion King with The Rock, as well as he played the Kingpin in the Daredevil movie that starred Ben Affleck. Now, a lot of people may or may not know this, but he first appeared in the Ice Cube movie Players Club. He played a bodyguard to Luke. So that was actually my first time seeing Michael Clark Duncan. I'm not sure if anybody else may remember that or not, but that was one of my first times seeing him. So he's one of those actors that was, just taken from us too soon. I still believe there were other movies or shows for him to do and be a part of, and given that he had did Kingpin and Daredevil for the Marvel movie franchise, I could see him, doing another Marvel character or even for the DC universe, but he was one of those ones that was taken from us too soon and still had a lot to give, but left us, with memorable movies to remember him for. So that would be an episode to see. Another episode would be about the Arsenio Hall show. Now, Arsenio first came on the scene back in 1989 with his show. It ran from 1989 to 1994 for 6 seasons. And then he came back again back in 2013 for 1 season. Now, an episode about his show, just going into the different events and things that happened, with the first run of the show. You had various interviews and various moments on the show that happened, good and bad. But then it was with the second run of the show in 2013 where there was one episode where he had announced to the whole world that the show got renewed for a second season. But after that first season ended, they decided not to go through with the second season and just canceled them after that. So, that would be an interesting episode to talk about. And, just hearing from him. And, when you look back on the show, especially its first run, a lot of musicians, actors, comedians, owe their careers to an appearance on Arsenio. Because at the time, there was Leno and Letterman. And when you couldn't get on them, when you got on Arsenio, seems like a lot of people's careers took off after being on Arsenio's show. So a lot of people to hear from about that. Another episode I'd like to see would be about the movie The Last Dragon. And this was a movie that was released back in March of 1985. This starred Taimak as Bruce Leroy. And a lot to talk about with this movie, just, how the movie came together, and also came to find out that they originally were looking to have Billy Blanks in the role of Bruce Leroy, but Taimak ended up getting that role and making the character iconic, as well as the movie had a cult following. You may remember Busta Rhymes dressing as Shonuff in his Dangerous music video, as well as WWE wrestler Naomi, whom wrestling fans may know for her Feel the Glow t-shirts or Feel the Glow movement. Her inspiration for Feel the Glow came from the movie The Last Dragon. So you still have a majority of the cast that you can talk to and interview for this movie. Unfortunately, Vanity, who played Lord Charles, Julius Carey, who played Shonuff, and Leo O'Brien, who played Bruce Leroy's younger brother Richie, are no longer with us. But you still have a majority of the cast to interview and talk to about that movie. An actor I'd like to see an episode of Unsung Hollywood about would be Antonio Fargas. Now, there have been Unsung Hollywood episodes, with Pam Grier, Fred the Hammer Williamson, Jim Brown, Richard Roundtree, and the late Ron O'Neal. Now, we know all of them to be part of the blaxploitation films, but, there was never an episode they did about Antonio Fargas, but I would love to see one. He starred in various different films. We may remember him from Car Wash, Foxy Brown, Cleopatra Jones. And a lot of us may know him as Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch, or even Doc from Everybody Hates Chris, but Antonio Fargas is an episode I'd like to see. Another episode will be about the movie Black Dynamite. Now, Black Dynamite starred Michael Jai White, Tommy Davidson, and Arsenio Hall. Now, this was a movie that was released in October 2009, but it was only released in movie theaters for 2 weeks, and it was only released in just 70 movie theaters. And with that 2-week run, that movie did about $243,000. Now, in spite of what they made in the movie theaters in the 2 weeks, what they made up for with their DVD Blu-ray sales, so this is another movie that took on a cult classic following. This is more of a blaxploitation action comedy along the lines of I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. So if you liked I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, you'll enjoy Black Dynamite. But, Black Dynamite is, again, one of those ones that just caught their cult following. And, I wonder what would have happened if they would have went with a full release in more than just 70 movie theaters and just let Black Dynamite get out there and let the word spread. And I'm sure it would have done bigger numbers than what it did in those 2 weeks. So again, Black Dynamite would be a good episode to watch. Now, another episode of Unsung Hollywood I'd like to see would be about Garrett Morris. Now, a lot of us may remember him from the early days of Saturday Night Live, or we may remember him as Martin's boss, Stan, on Martin, or we may remember him as Uncle Junior on the Jamie Foxx Show. So again, Garrett Morris is another episode of Unsung Hollywood I'd like to see. The next episode I'd like to see would be an episode about the TV series Family Matters. Now, this show ran from September of 1989 to July of 1998. So a lot to talk about in the episode. Now, anyone that was a fan or followed the show may remember they had a younger daughter named Judy Winslow on the show. However, the youngest daughter was cut out after season 5. And when the new season started, there was no mention of her, no explanation, as to what happened to her in the show. It's just as if the show went on as if she never existed, basically. Another thing they can talk about in the episode is the changing of networks during the final season of the show, where Family Matters went from ABC to CBS. As well as during that final season, you had the departure of actress Jo Marie Payton, who played the mother Harriet Winslow for the majority of the series, and she left toward the end of the season. There were still 8 episodes of the final season to film. However, she was replaced in her role by actress Judy Ann Elder. Now, you may remember her playing Mrs. Waters, Gina's mother on Martin. So she took over for those final 8 episodes in the role of Harriet Winslow. And then you have to talk about the passings of Michelle Thomas, who played Myra, who passed away back in December of 1998, as well as actress Rosetta Lenoir, who played Mother Winslow in 2003. So again, Family Matters is another episode that I'd like to see from Unsung Hollywood. And the other episode I would like to see, and I'm sure all would agree, an episode about the late Della Reese. Now, Della Reese's career spanned for 6 decades. So she worked with a little bit of everybody. She worked with the likes of Red Fox, Richard Pryor, to young actors like Lorenz Tate and Queen Latifah. So there was at some point in time in our lives we've seen Della Reese, whether it was watching her in Harlem Nights, or even TV shows such as Touched by an Angel. But, Della Reese is someone well deserving of an episode of Unsung Hollywood, especially about her career. So that's another episode that I would like to see. But Unsung Hollywood is a great series that, does a great job in letting you know about the life and career of various actors and actresses, as well as, letting you know about various TV shows and movies. So I would highly recommend watching that series along with the series Unsung regarding the various musicians. And that's all the time I have for today, so don't forget to follow us on Twitter as well as Instagram, Windy City Nitty Gritty Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Walter Hefner. God bless you guys, and take care.